One. And we are what? Wrong? No, wrong, but hold on. No, capture.
I heard recording in
Yeah,
progress.
I saw that. No, but I wrote nope, that's a screenshot. It's not what I need. So Zoom's recording. I record I also screen record uh
Oh,
with
you back it up.
QuickTime Player, that old 1990s app, because I have done it happened once, like episode 50 or something.
Right.
We did the whole episode and then somehow the recording got corrupted. And
Oh,
I wasn't even necessarily a special episode, but I was just like, I never want that to happen again.
of
And
course,
like simple things. I dropped a hard drive in
of
early
course.
2020, and that led to me developing like a triple redundancy system of hard, just little things like
Of course.
to I just, nailing my head on a brick. Now I've been taking care of my brain more than I ever have before. So that's why I do
Um,
dual recording. But right,
just motorcycle helmets really help.
I mean that and a life jacket and maybe a scuba tank, and I just won't leave my house. That might just be what I need to be doing for the next several decades. But
And carry one of these around, as you know, for peeing.
yeah, well, I just drink enough so that my brain swells it all up, sucks it all up. Apparently creatine is good for like neuron regeneration. So
Yeah.
I've been
Are you
taking.
looking to dilate your vessels, your arteries, to expand them more so there's more blood flow?
I don't really know. I never use workouts. I've always just eaten like
Because what I do to get a real good flush, okay, to get my system opened up, because I have, according to the doctors, I have anyway, it's a thing with my heart.
uh-huh.
So what I did to open up the arteries is niacin, the
Oh
one
yeah, B6. Yeah, that'll
flush.
get you a good flush. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've I've been using, apparently there are studies that show that creatine's good for specifically for like concussion recovery. I don't like it because you put on a lot of water weight. I think I've gained 12 pounds in the last week and just water weight. And
And blood pressure was up.
I can see it in the gym too. There's no definition. It's all just puffy.
Yep.
But I decided I'm gonna do it for. I did it for the last week. I'm probably gonna do it for the next 2 weeks, and then I'm gonna cut it
Been
out.
there, done that.
I don't like it. But
Show us your bicep again, because people need to know that this guy trains, okay? And I train also. I mean, here we go,
yeah,
69.
Paul's
Still
twice
at,
Paul's twice my age and throwing around weights like a madman. Um, so for everybody listening,
yeah,
this is actually going to be a first of
a first in
826 episodes. This is episode 827. Well, normally amongst other things, I shower, shave, put on clean clothes, and meditate, and I haven't done that yet. I'm sweating like a dumb Irish pig. And actually, somebody commented yesterday, I need to stop being self-deprecating. So I'm sweating like a beautiful creature of God. And because I have a head injury, and I see it as divine providence that Paul actually emailed me yesterday and was like, he's got a presentation, and technically I don't even need to be present. And so
you don't.
normally I wouldn't do that.
You can
This
go
is the
shopping, you can have a shower, you can have a
I'm
gym
gonna
workout,
I
you can
gotta
get
go
your
clean up
girlfriend
my
to do your massage, your nails, whatever you need to do.
go get my
Just
hair
go out
did.
and-
So not only is this a first, because I normally I feel like I'm not doing work if I'm not present. I guess this is also a sign of trust that I'm just assuming Paul isn't going to start calling for like an attack on the Capitol, and I upload it,
No,
and a week from now the
no.
FBI's at my house, and I'm like, what's up? And they're like, yeah, that hour-long presentation you did about sieging. I'll be like, oh no, and so it's a sign of trust. But yeah, so this is going to be a first. We'll see how this goes.
It's the
And
first in broadcast history. Nobody has done that, not Alex Jones, nobody. We're presenting a video presentation here, and it's going to be it's for an hour and 21 minutes. So make sure you're back.
yeah,
to
I'll
sign
I'll
off.
set an alarm. This is going to be interesting. And so with that sort of preamble,
Let
Paul,
me
how about,
explain to
yeah, I
you.
was gonna
Let me
say, how about you
explain to you
introduce to everyone what's about
what
to
this is
happen?
all about. Okay,
Yeah.
I've been immersed into this COVID thing since February, March of last year, 2020. And I've been eating and sleeping COVID. I've done a lot of research. I've got like 4 websites.
No jabs for me,
And
dot info.
And I've got the mothership, nojamforme.info, which has 584 links to primary sources. I mean, I'm a very compulsive, obsessive kind of person. And so I need to keep doing the research to find out what the hell is going on with COVID. And so this is what it's all about. This is a condensation of all the information I've put together that really slices and dices the COVID scam. And it's called the Scamdemic Matrix.
And I guess, will that be in the video, or do you want to kind of
Everything is going to be in the video.
All right.
I'll be screen sharing the video.
Yeah.
And we're off to the races. You can do whatever you want during that time.
And also, this is a first, I think, where both guests are wearing sunglasses technically inside.
Yeah, this is a sign of solidarity.
Sunglasses. This is a I stand with Tommy. That needs to be the new profile. That needs to be the new Twitter handle. It's just sunglasses instead of the Ukraine flag or the rainbow flag or the BLM fist. Sunglasses. I stand with Tommy. Concussion United.
That's it.
Yeah, that's what it will be. Riots in the streets. Everyone wearing sunglasses with canes so we don't fall over. But aside from that, Paul, do you want to take it away? And I'm gonna go.
I'm gonna take it away now. I've got my video lined up here.
I'm gonna go do my. I'm gonna go do my daily routine. I'm gonna make my bed, put away my laundry, meal prep, shower, and a whole bunch of other shit that I got to do.
I gotta screen share it. So.
Oh yeah, and I think I gotta allow screen share multiple.
Screen share.
There we go. All right, I just turned on your permission.
Where is my screen share now?
It should be in the bottom center. It should be the only green button. At least on my screen, there's a bunch of gray buttons and there's a green button in the center. So
okay,
share screen. You got
screen.
it?
Share screen, and want find your documents. Okay, let's try this. It's not giving it.
You're good. We got nowhere to go.
Trying to find it.
No, you're good, man.
Do you see a black screen? What do you see here so far?
Nope, just you.
Just me, huh?
Yeah, multiple. Yeah, mess around with it. We got nothing doing. I guess I'll monologue. Is it coming out that that Fauci and the World Health Organization were funding monkeypox research? I mean,
yeah, that's going to be in there too. That's all. Gonna be
beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Paul's stealing my thunder. It yeah, and you can kind of see the same playbook as 2020. There we go. We got that screen going now. All right, so hour 21 all set.
Fair use notice disclaimer.
Yep. And do you want me to check in at the end? Do you want some like closing thoughts?
To get people vaccinated.
Everything is reopened, then what's the carrot going to be? How are we going to incentivize people to actually get the vaccine? So that's why I think the CDC and the Biden administration needs to come out a lot bolder and say, if you're vaccinated, you can do all these things. Here are all these freedoms that you have. Because otherwise, people are going to go out and enjoy these freedoms anyway.
Okay, we've seen this movie before many times. They're always trying to instill fear so we can be masked, etc. But this time, COVID had a special twist to it.
Good morning.
What is your best argument for the vaccine to people who feel that the chances of me or my child getting severely sick from H1N1 is so mild that I'm not willing to take a chance with a vaccine that is brand new and may have long-term side effects that we're not yet aware of?
I'll get to in some of the latest slides how this disease, which we surmised early on, started off in the male homosexual population in this country. Not that there was anything intrinsically different or wrong or what have you about homosexuality. It was very simple. It's straightforward epidemiology. You take an infectious agent and you introduce it into a population in which the spread among those individuals, if it's sexual contact spread, it's a perfect setup to spread.
This time around, COVID was the main focus as they tried to roll out transhumanism, depopulation, and a technocratic world. The pandemic represents a rare but narrow window of opportunity to reflect, reimagine, and reset our world, according to Klaus Schwab.
With all the current issues on our agenda, we tend to forget that we are in the midst of the fourth industrial revolution, which accelerates global change in much more comprehensive and faster ways than the previous three revolutions.
Of course, this is not a partisan issue. It crosses both parties. We have Democrats and Republicans speaking out.
And yet, despite the fact that we've now essentially clinically tested the vaccine on billions of people worldwide, around 1 in 5 Americans is still willing to put themselves at risk and put their families at risk rather than get vaccinated.
We're never going to learn about how safe the vaccine is unless we start giving it.
And have you seen any other vaccine that was put out for the public that skipped the animal test?
Never before, especially for children.
And as what I've read, they actually started the animal test, and because the animals were dying, they stopped the test.
Right.
Folks, I think that's important to understand there, that what we're talking about is the American people are now the guinea pigs. This is the test program that's going on. They didn't do the human testing, and they stopped the animal test because the animals were dying.
I repeat once more, the decision not to vaccinate will not affect only your health or your life. Unfortunately, it will affect the lives of others, and likely the lives of the people you love the most, which are the people that usually you are in contact with. So I think trust science.
Well, and a question for you. I've heard you have not yet had your shot. When do you plan to get it?
Sooner I can, I will. The only sensitivity here, Meg, is that I don't want to have an example that I'm cutting the line. That I am 59 years old, in good health. I'm not working in the front line. So my type is not recommended to get vaccination now. So that's one consideration.
And what we did in terms of therapeutics, what we did with Operation Warp Speed, and it's been given credit, but I think we haven't been given the kind of credit we should get.
There was a meeting between several bodies in Davos on May 22nd to the 28th to come up with a global pandemic pact treaty. If the Director General decides at his discretion a pandemic is imminent or occurring, his advice and authority on pandemic governance shall supersede regional, state, and federal authority until such time the pandemic ends. Again, at the Director General's discretion. That was the main issue, the main amendment. And behind the WHO, of course, we have Bill Gates, who is the primary financial arm of the WHO.
So we, we'll have to prepare for the next one. That, I'd say is will get attention this time.
Will be another pandemic.
Absolutely.
The systemic corruption is embedded. We have Christopher Cole, an FDA executive of Countermeasures Initiative, admitting that the drug companies, the food companies, the vaccine companies pay the FDA hundreds of millions of dollars a year. Here we have a letter from Pfizer to the FDA, noting that a wire transfer for $2.8 million was made to the FDA. And we have this website, openthebooks.com, where Fauci's malfeasance and connections are brought to light. Dun & Bradstreet lists the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention as a private company. We know that the CDC owns vaccine patents and sells about $4.6 billion worth of vaccines every year. And Jim Smith, board member of Pfizer, is also the chairman of the Thomson Reuters Foundation. We have evidence that the CDC concedes that its head of immunization safety makes vaccine policy with pharma companies that sell vaccines.
The emergency use authorization vaccines have liability protection under the PrEP Act and under the CARES Act. So as long as you take an emergency use, you can't sue them. Once they get approved, now you can sue them, unless they can get it recommended for children.
What?
Because all vaccines that are recommended, officially recommended for children, get liability protection, even if an adult gets that vaccine. That's why they're going after kids. They know this is going to kill and injure a huge number of children.
Yeah. The US FDA should not be taking their direction on regulations for running clinical trials to determine safety and efficacy from the World Health Organization. So what you've just revealed, I mean, at that point, the FDA should have said, oh, no, that's not going to fly. You're going to better come back to us with a plan for human safety testing, correct?
Population agenda. You might think this is a big conspiracy. Just you wait.
First, we've got population. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%.
Even the WEF says we cannot hide away from human population. All these things we talked about wouldn't be a problem if it was the size of the population 500 years ago. And 500 years ago, the world population was around 460 million.
Again, I think the biggest question maybe in economics and politics of the coming decades will be what to do with all these useless people.
And we're taking things that are, genetically modified organisms, and we're injecting them in little kids' arms. We just shoot them right into the... But you don't have a choice. People act like you have a choice. Normalcy only returns when we've largely vaccinated the entire global population.
Of course, they're rolling out now a food catastrophe just to tighten the screws on us, depopulate the world through painful measures. And in case you haven't noticed, gas prices across the world are not inflated equally. In some places, for example, in Venezuela, it's only 8.4 cents per gallon. Their playbook is COVID-19, The Great Reset, was authored by Klaus Schwab and Thierry Malaret. In Canada, for example, you cannot travel by train or plane domestically or internationally unless you are vaccinated. Canada is the low-hanging fruit. Its prime minister is a WEF accolade, a puppet. The Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve are planning or discussing now a CBDC, central bank digital currency, which will use blockchain technology, a bit like China's social credit score system.
Humans are now hackable animals. The whole idea that humans have, they have this soul or spirit and they have free will and nobody knows what's happening inside me. So whatever I choose, whether in the election or whether in the supermarket, this is my free will, that's over. We are in the process of acquiring divine abilities, of turning ourselves into gods. And I mean this in the most literal sense possible. It's not a metaphor.
Even in the Government of Canada's website, you have Exploring Biodigital Convergence. It's coming.
From a joint report from the government of the UK and Germany about transhumanism. And as you know, this is one of the agendas of the World Economic Forum. That's not hidden. It's not a conspiracy, transhumanism. And they talk about the RNA vaccines as an entry point kind of opening that space ethically and otherwise.
This is where we have to zoom out, because when you look at transhumanism, it basically reduces humans to commodities. And if you believe in transhumanism, you automatically have to take into consideration the benefits of human farming, organ harvesting, adrenochrome harvesting. You can also extend it to cannibalism. Humans now can be edible commodities. You can legalize full-term and live birth abortion. Pedophilia becomes very fashionable. Tracking of your carbon footprint, your movement, your thinking is all part and parcel of transhumanism. You can veer off into human-animal hybrids. You can introduce involuntary euthanasia if certain demographics are not viable anymore and are causing a big burden on the safety nets of society. They can be exterminated. And of course, you can have designer babies. You can legalize all kinds of otherwise sins. For example, incest, rape, because after all, might makes right, justice is for the powerful in this kind of construct. It completely obliterates the best practices that God set on this earth when he introduced humanity. Now, some of you believe in evolution, but humanity nevertheless was introduced on this planet perhaps simultaneously with an evolutionary spectrum sequence. We have evidence that there were giants on this earth, dinosaurs, etc. But at some point, divinity, the Godhead, decided to introduce humanity on the planet, and there were a set of practices, best practices that were introduced to humanity to make sure that humanity is preserved, that it flourishes, leaves a better planet behind, and lives in peace. All that is wiped away in one fell swoop with transhumanism. It is a demonic, satanic playbook. And I know some of you understand that there are Satan worshipers here and Moloch worshipers and Beelzebub worshipers and Baphomet worshipers. So let's not even go there, okay? It is the commoditization of humanity that they want. They want us to be simply numbers on a ledger, on a balance sheet. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. This is how our world could change by 2030. This is a World Economic Forum statement. So where there is no free will, there is coercion. Where there is coercion, there is no accountability. Where there is no accountability, there is no need for rewards or punishments in this world or in the hereafter. There is no need for jails. A world without free will is a world without purpose. A world without purpose is a lost world, worthy of destruction. And that's why the Lord Jesus Christ said in the end times, he would destroy the world by fire. How I Learned to Love the New World Order, a Wall Street Journal article back in April 23rd, 1992, was written by none other than Joseph Biden.
And now is a time when things are shifting. There's gonna be a new world order out there, and we've got to lead it, and we've got to unite the rest of the free world in doing it.
Now, which Joe Biden are we seeing here? Notice the earlobes. They're not the same. Notice the skin tone. It's not the same.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order.
The future is built by us, by a powerful community as you here in this room. We have the means to improve the state of the world.
The COVID kickoff, let's talk about that. The whole idea behind a pandemic is to create fear. So in January of 2020, we saw people dropping dead, only in China, no other country. People were dying and dropping dead from COVID-19.
I know as of today, and I say as of today at this hour, we have 33 confirmed positive tests for the virus.
Yesterday, we had 22 cases. Today, we have 33 cases. So it's gone up by 11. That brings, those are 11 new cases. 22 goes to 33.
As we sort through this here in Arkansas, today we have 33 confirmed positive cases in Arkansas.
As of today, we have 33 confirmed cases with Boston residents. We expect those numbers to climb.
As of this afternoon, we have 33 Pennsylvanians who have tested positive for COVID-19.
So as of this morning, there were 33 confirmed cases in North Carolina.
Evening to you, lots to get to tonight. I'm Leon Hendricks. We want to start with new information into our newsroom. Within the past couple of hours, there are now 33 confirmed cases of the coronavirus in Michigan.
In March 24th, 2020, the CDC came up with a new COVID-19 death code. It was introduced to all medical practitioners. And what it said was, the COVID-19 should be reported on the death certificate for all decedents where the disease caused or is assumed to have caused or contributed to death. Certifiers should include as much detail as possible based on their knowledge of the case, medical records, laboratory testing, etc. If the decedent had other chronic conditions such as COPD or asthma that they may have also contributed, these conditions can be reported in part 2. But part 1, make sure you mark cause of death as COVID-19. And then what happened? The death numbers went through the roof. What you'll notice here is, though, that the CDC combined pneumonia, influenza, and COVID deaths to inflate the death count. The number of influenza deaths marked in yellow at the bottom suddenly disappeared in 2020. But COVID deaths spiked. Influenza cases averaged about 25 million per year through the last 10 years. In 2020, there were 38 million influenza cases in the United States. Suddenly, in 2021, that number dropped to 1,675. The CDC attributed the 2021 drop in flu cases to masks, social distancing, and hand washing. And we have the document. Just check out this tinyurl.com link. However, there were 60 million COVID cases in the USA in 2021. How does that make any sense at all? We have known that the flu is deadlier sometimes than coronavirus. It can cause enormous damage on the lungs.
ER doctors now, my friends that I talk to say, you know, it's interesting. When I'm writing up my death report, I'm being pressured to add COVID. Why is that? Why are we being pressured to add COVID to maybe increase the numbers and make it look a little bit worse than it is? I think so. This is not about science, and it's not even about COVID.
I've seen so many doctors online that have made their own webcam videos, just perplexed by the protocol that the CDC had given them.
Well, last Friday, I received a 7-page document that sort of told me that if I had an 86-year-old patient that had pneumonia but was never tested for COVID-19, but sometime after she came down with pneumonia, we learned that she had been exposed to her son who had no symptoms, but later on was identified with COVID-19, that it would be appropriate to diagnose on the death certificate COVID-19.
If someone dies with COVID-19, we are counting that as a COVID-19 death.
Technically, even if you died of a clear alternate cause, but you had COVID at the same time, it's still listed as a COVID death. So everyone who's listed as a COVID death doesn't mean that that was the cause of the death, but they had COVID at the time of death.
Every single one of my patients, minus one, died. Every single patient, and the majority of these patients didn't need to be put on ventilators at all. They were using the ventilators as a first treatment. If you had a cough, then a ventilator, they were putting you on a ventilator. And knowing, and this is one of the things that I recorded undercover, a doctor stating, yeah, we know that this is killing 100% of our patients. And, I asked specifically, well, if you know that it's killing 100% of the patients, then why not try something else? Why not do it? And then, their response is, well, it doesn't work. You literally feel like you're in the twilight zone at that point.
The other thing they do to inflate the death by COVID cases is, even though you're vaccinated, for the first 14 days, you are deemed to be unvaccinated. For the first 14 days after your last shot. So anything that happens, any adverse event that happens during those 14 days, whether it's death or a serious injury, is counted as an unvaccinated statistic. And 1/3 of the deaths are reported within 48 hours of the vaccination. Finally, the CDC admits that 94% of the COVID deaths had underlying medical conditions, but that's a little bit too little, too late. That was in August of 2020, after all the damage was done.
If a child goes in the hospital, they automatically get tested for COVID, and they get counted as a COVID hospitalized individual, when in fact they may go in for a broken leg or appendicitis or something like that. So it's overcounting the number of children who are, quote, hospitalized with COVID as opposed to because of COVID.
This is the survival rate around the world. And these statistics are from the World Health Organization. It averages to about 99.9% survival rate.
Again, you're right in the numbers that children in general do much, much better than adults and the elderly, and particularly those with underlying conditions.
More gaslighting. In 2021, 2022, China, with a population of 1.4 billion, had only 102,314 coronavirus cases. And deaths from coronavirus were only 4,636. You see something wrong with this picture. And what about these swabs that they insert into your blood-brain barrier through your nose? Well, they are sterilized in ethylene oxide, which is a carcinogenic.
So these swabs are saturated with, coated with EO, ethylene oxide. So what is ethylene oxide? Per the United States Environmental Protection Agency, classified ethylene oxide as a human carcinogen in December 2016. The EPA, as well as the International Agency for Research on Cancer and the National Toxicology Program, classifies ethylene oxide as a carcinogen to humans. Evidence in humans indicates that exposure to ethylene oxide by inhalation increases the risk of lymphoma cancers, myelomas, and leukemias, and for females, breast cancer. Ethylene oxide is mutagenic, which means it can change the DNA in your cell. Children may be more susceptible to the harmful effects of mutagenic substances.
Review your method later. That's what the CDC does after the damage is already done, of course. The CDC tweeted, remember that COVID-19 nose swab test you took? What happened to the swab? If it was processed with a PCR test, there's a 10% chance that it ended up in a lab for genomic sequencing analysis. Learn more about the process and its importance. Really, did they advise you of that fact before you had the test? Did they inform you? Did they give you informed consent? No, no. That is a crime against humanity.
Have you taken a test? Are you going to take a test?
No. Well, I'm not taking a test for some reason. I have no symptoms. I'm practicing pretty good social distance. I don't go to.
But it's hard to fully do it.
But not everybody in the United States should take a test. I mean, I have no symptoms. There's no reason for me to take a test.
The PCR test only detects dead nucleotides from present or previous illnesses. It does not identify or isolate a live virus. Fauci knows it.
And we have patients, and it's very frustrating for the patients as well as for the physicians. Somebody comes in and they repeat their PCR and it's like 37 cycle threshold. But you almost never can culture virus from a 37 threshold cycle. So I think if somebody does come in with 37, 38, even 36, you got to say, it's just dead nucleotides, period.
The COVID tracking project, which has willfully conflated RT-PCR tests with alleged COVID-19 counts, despite the fact that the RT-PCR test does not measure for SARS-CoV-2. In fact, it has no ability to measure for SARS-CoV-2. And SARS-CoV-2 has not ever been established as a causative agent for COVID-19.
And of course, the PCR test was discussed at length on day 3 of the grand jury proceedings that started on February the 5th. You can go to grandjury.net. And the primary argument of the case is that since the PCR tests are flawed, the whole thing is a scam. In 2020, the CDC even produced this document. You can go online and check it out. It said in the document on page 39, since no quantified virus isolates of the 2019 nCoV were available for CDC use at the time the test was developed and this study conducted, assays designed for detection of the 2019 nCoV RNA were tested with characterized stocks of in vitro transcribed full-length RNA. In other words, they did not have a live virus to work with. They could have extracted it from any number of patients, but they didn't. They just didn't have it. It was not there. And then Bourla, the CEO of Pfizer, states that the data we have received is from a pseudovirus. It's not a real virus. If you're dealing with a pseudovirus, you're dealing with a construct, a computer simulation, an artificial virus that is not the full length DNA sequence of a virus. It is a shortened version of the virus. It is a bioweapon, in other words. Imagine going to your boss and saying, why not test for other communicable diseases? Why only test for COVID-19? What do you think your boss would say? Well, he'd say, these other diseases have been around forever. They're endemic. We have vaccines for them. We're not going to be testing everybody for every communicable disease here. And the other thing is, Big Pharma would not want that, would not want to attribute the cause of illness to another disease, because then it could not sell its COVID-19 jabs. Sales would suffer. Take, for example, tuberculosis that has a 45% mortality rate. There are 13 million people in the United States with latent TB, and these are not referred to as TB cases. They are simply latent TB infected people, but they're not referred to as TB cases, as is the case with COVID-19 cases, where if you are asymptomatic, you're exhibiting no symptoms of the disease, you are still deemed to be a COVID-19 case if you have tested positive with this flawed PCR test. Take a look at the mortality rates here. Tuberculosis, 45%, COVID, 0.14%, influenza, 0.16%. And yet, only for COVID-19, we had to mandate lockdowns, testing, masks, vaccines, social distancing, quarantines, the no jab, no job edict, travel restrictions, contact tracing. Why only for COVID? Well, to sell the vaccines. The other thing that had to be done was therapeutics had to be banned in order to introduce a state of emergency.
What do we need to focus on? We need to focus on early treatment of this virus. And it's widely available, and it's cheap, and it's generic, and that's why it's not approved. Because if there were a treatment for this virus, they cannot have authorization for these vaccines, period. It states, I think about page 3 in the emergency authorization, it states clearly, you cannot authorize this investigational vaccine if there's an effective therapy for this virus.
Our governor didn't ban alternative treatments. So in the hospital that I work at in Florida, you know, we use the hydroxychloroquine and zinc protocol on our patients right away.
Right.
We had 100% success rate. So getting to New York, you know, I learned that, you know, obviously Governor Cuomo banned the use of the hydroxychloroquine. You could do whatever you wanted to a patient and not be liable, except if a doctor prescribed the hydroxychloroquine, then they would be liable, lose their license, and punished. And that's kind of what happened. And for me, I couldn't just sit back and say nothing, because then I would have been a part of the problem. And as nurse, we're supposed to be the solution, you know, for patients. So it was sad. It was a really, really difficult thing to experience.
The WHO, they affirmed the fact that hydroxychloroquine had its benefits in pre or post-exposure prophylaxis in patients that were exposed to COVID-19. Let's stress that again. Chloroquine was known to be a potent inhibitor of SARS coronaviruses as far back as August 2005. Hydroxychloroquine as a primary prophylactic agent, again. And the AMA quietly reverses this position and admits that hydroxychloroquine works. Of course, all the parasites feared ivermectin because it works, and it would threaten their bottom line. After all, they had invested in vaccines, and they were looking to depopulate the world, and they were looking to a great reset and transhumanism. And so ivermectin was their worst fear. So how deadly are the COVID-19 jabs? All other vaccines between 1990 and 2020 produced 1,227 deaths. COVID-19 jabs in 1 year, 2021 to 2022, produced 21,000 deaths. We have data again streaming in from VAERS showing the spike in deaths from COVID-19 jabs. This is a comparative study. It includes 244 vaccines.
Breakthrough infections have mild illness. They are staying out of the hospital. They are not dying. And I think that that's the most important thing to understand. We have a massive number of people who are vaccinated, and those breakthrough infections tend to be mild.
Between, let's say, 1968 to 2020, there were 1.7 million adverse events. Compared to 2021, COVID-19 vaccines produced 2.4 million adverse events.
The overwhelming number of deaths, over 75%, occurred in people who had at least 4 comorbidities. So really, these are people who were unwell to begin with.
What's happened to the autopsy, Ryan? Well, Anthony Fauci told our government to tell people don't do autopsies on COVID patients. You cannot find that for which you do not look.
And we have now all kinds of videos on Rumble. And this is what the blood looks like for a subject that's not vaccinated. You see healthy, round, red blood cells, very uniform, homogeneous, symmetrical. And this is now what the blood looks like after the subject was vaccinated with Moderna. It tends to lump together in strands. It coagulates.
So the key message from our finding is that we found that recipients of the Pfizer vaccine, those who've had 2 doses, have about 5 to 6-fold lower amounts of neutralizing antibodies. Now, these are the sort of gold standard private security antibodies of your immune system, which block the virus from getting into your cells in the first place. So we found that that's less for people with 2 doses. We've also found that for people with only 1 dose of the Pfizer jab, that they're less likely to have high levels of these antibodies in their blood.
The messenger RNA ablates, wipes out, destroys toll-like receptor 3, 7, and 8. The toll-like receptors are like, if you've ever heard my talk on toll-like receptors, I love toll-like receptors. They're like God inside our body, right? They're these little radars that are constantly, vigilantly looking around and getting rid of viruses, bacteria, and things that don't belong there. They are our innate, God-given, what we are born with immune system. The messenger RNA shots destroy toll-like receptor 3, 7, and 8, which is our primary first line of defense, making us more susceptible to getting COVID. And this is why all the people that get the shot suddenly are sick, because they're more susceptible. We know the mechanisms.
And I don't mean to sound alarmist, but what it seems to be rolling out is the worst case scenario, where the vaccine in the waning phase is causing virus to replicate more efficiently than it would otherwise, which is what we call antibody dependent enhancement. It's the element to safety. And that is, if you vaccinate someone and they make an antibody response, and then they get exposed and infected, does the response that you induce actually enhance the infection and make it worse? This would not be the first time, if it happened, that a vaccine that looked good in initial safety actually made people worse.
And then on October 30th, 2020, we have the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices hold a meeting in which it outlined all the possible adverse events from COVID-19 vaccines. Everything from deaths to myocarditis, you name it. Even down at the bottom, vaccine-enhanced disease is highlighted. One of the primary considerations in medical ethics, according to the FDA, is informed consent. Every medical association knows about the Nuremberg Code and the importance of informing a patient before they are administered a treatment, a medical intervention. And yet, every package insert in these vaccines is blank. It's just a giant blank sheet of paper. Videos have been made about that.
You want me to take a vaccine? You want me to take a vaccine and you don't know the ingredients of it and you're administering it. What's your full name? What's your full name? You're going to go world. You administer the vaccine. Do you know the ingredients of the vaccine?
What we want to convince you to do is go talk to people who are informed in these areas, because and ask your questions, because I believe that when you get those questions answered, you really do understand the risks of COVID, and you understand the benefits of vaccination. And
you need to ask about the risks of the vaccination, not the risks of COVID. The survival rate for COVID is 99.9%. And Kristen Nordland, the CDC health communication specialist at the center of all this, says that the CDC doesn't want to release its data about the vaccines because they are afraid they might be misinterpreted as the vaccines being ineffective. Well, talk about hiding the truth, right? Talk about malfeasance, obfuscation. And then pregnant women were to be excluded from any clinical trials according to the synopsis of Pfizer and Moderna. There was to be no testing on pregnant women. Yet the CDC came up with a directive that COVID-19 vaccination is now safe for pregnant people in August of 2021.
And that horrifically, the Department of Defense data shows that female soldiers' pregnancies are experiencing an absolutely catastrophic rate of abnormalities and fetal problems. So it's so important. I'm just going to read it. It's super fast. She says, to date, there have not been any human clinical trials. This is really real, what you're hearing, conducted by a COVID-19 vaccine pharmaceutical company to determine if vaccines are safe during pregnancy or while breastfeeding. All emergency use authorizations exclude pregnant women, and no COVID-19 vaccine has been approved for use during pregnancy. Astonishingly, however, she says, many professional organizations have strongly advocated despite that pregnant women get this vaccine, despite any lack of safety data. And what she points out is thanks to the court-ordered release of the confidential Pfizer documents, which the FDA wanted sealed for 75 years, we have learned that pregnant women and breastfeeding mothers were excluded from phase 1, 2, and 3 of the human trials. One recently released Pfizer document lists 21 groups of people who were excluded from all phases of the Pfizer trials and specifically singles out, quote, women who are pregnant and breastfeeding as not able to participate in any of the trials.
According to military data, it confirms that there was a 300% increase in miscarriages. Myocarditis in children is up by over 13,000%.
And we've had 80 cases of myocarditis, which I'm going to get to, but myocarditis has a significant mortality, 5-year mortality rate. I think it's 66%. So we, with the vaccine program, have ostensibly killed more of our young active duty people than COVID did.
We never made that trip to the emergency room.
George Jr. collapsed in his room on October 27th and was pronounced dead later that morning. His dad describes him as healthy, saying he had no underlying medical conditions. An autopsy report from the Bradford County Coroner's Office shows George Jr. died from, quote, COVID-19 vaccine-related myocarditis.
Myocarditis is how I ruled it.
Have you seen anything like this before?
We are currently working on other cases that are related to vaccine and booster-related issues within our county, yes.
To our booster campaign was that the 60% of the people in severe and critical conditions were immunized, doubly immunized, fully vaccinated. And as I said, 45% of the people who died in this fourth wave were doubly vaccinated.
I hear a lot of times people feel it's a rare event that fully vaccinated people may die. I happen to be the senior advisor to Governor Hogan in the state of Maryland. In the last 6 to 8 weeks, more than 40% of the people that died in Maryland were fully vaccinated.
How bad is your batch? If you're vaccinated, you should go to howbad.info and check out the lethality of your batch, because these batches were not symmetrical. They did not use any quality control when they produced these vaccines. Different batches produce more severe adverse events, more deaths than other batches, depending on when they were released, on the timeline of their release, and also to which demographic they were distributed to. So go check it out and you'll be very surprised. Okay, life insurance payouts skyrocket 258% as post-vaccine deaths rapidly accelerate. And we have whistleblowers now within the insurance industry coming out, calling out the vaccine fraud. The US Army begins enforcing its vaccine mandate. I wonder who is telling them to do that. Here are the DoD numbers. Okay, neurological disorders jumped from a 5-year average of 82,000 to 863,000. And you can read the rest of it yourself.
1.7 million a year, 1.7 in 2016, 1.7 million incidents of whatnot combined in 2018. And then at the beginning of 2021, January, they mandate the vaccine for the US military. And that statistic goes from being very flat to going spaceship through the roof. I mean, it just goes north and then some. And it jumps from 1.7 million incidents of something being wrong with our service members worldwide total to almost 22 million.
Oh my gosh.
Check out this little video on Rumble. You'll be surprised. The tinyurl.com link here will get you to it. But you'll be surprised at how the Chinese officials are drooling at the mouth at the prospect of the US military being decimated by these COVID-19 jabs. In sports, 100 FIFA registered players and over 400 athletes are dead from heart failure in the last year.
Saying to me that in all that time that I played, I never once saw any footballer leave the pitch because of heart issues. If anybody can look at what's happening now in the world of sport and say it's normal for all of these people to be having heart issues in football matches, cricket matches, basketball matches, any sport you wish, the amount of people that are suffering is going through the roof.
Pilots are reporting the same kind of incidents. mRNA jabs change your DNA. Now we know. This is now proven. The DNA inside human liver cells can be changed, and in other organs.
And you see, the difference of this fourth industrial revolution is it doesn't change what you are doing. It changes you. If you take a genetic editing, just as an example, it's you who are changed. And of course, this has a big impact on your identity.
The mRNA vaccines are an example for that cell and gene therapy. I always like to say, if we had surveyed 2 years ago in the public, would you be willing to take a gene or cell therapy and inject it into your body, we would have probably had a 95% refusal rate.
They had the endless push to get the jab.
15 days to stop the spread.
The vaccine, 95% effective.
Quite impressive.
Vaccines are going to succeed.
There's hope.
This vaccine means hope. It will protect you and those you love.
In order to get rid of this pandemic, get vaccinated. Roll up your sleeve and do your part.
This is our shot.
With each shot, we're just a little bit closer to normal.
If we do this now, we protect ourselves, our loved ones, and every other person around the globe.
You're okay. You're not gonna get COVID if you have these vaccinations.
The vaccine, you're protected. The results of the vaccine are very good. And if you do get it, it's a very minor form. People aren't dying when they take the vaccine.
Instead of the virus being able to hop from person to person to person to person, spreading and spreading, sickening some of them, but not all of them. And the ones that it doesn't sicken don't know they have it. And then they give it to even more people because they didn't recognize they were, right? Instead of the virus being able to hop from person to person to person, potentially mutating and becoming more virulent and drug resistant along the way. Now we know that the vaccines work well enough that the virus stops with every vaccinated person.
The CDC today suggests, that vaccinated people do not carry the virus, don't get sick, and that it's not just in the clinical trials, but it's also in real world data.
Even Elon Musk promoted the vaccine.
It's a lot safer than getting COVID.
See, that's why we're on the fence. What's the cure or what's the survivability rate of COVID-19?
So nobody's died from the vaccine.
And then they backpedaled.
But what about all the fully vaccinated people who get the breakthrough infection? Can they pass it on? Could they pass it on to their children? Could they pass the virus on to older people, especially more vulnerable people with underlying health conditions?
And that's exactly the point that we made in our guidance. So yes, they can with the Delta variant. And that was the reason that we changed our guidance last Tuesday. Our vaccines are working exceptionally well. They continue to work well for Delta with regard to severe illness and death. They prevent it. But what they can't do anymore is prevent transmission.
Prevent them from passing it on or transmitting it to other people at the moment. I don't believe we have the evidence on any of the vaccines to be confident that it's going to prevent people from actually getting the infection and therefore being able to pass it on. So I think till we know more, we need to assume that people who have been vaccinated also need to take the same precautions till there's a certain level of herd immunity. Of course, that's being built in the population. So again, this is a dynamic and evolving field. And I think our understanding and our recommendations will change as we get more follow-up data from these trials.
I think we need to be careful as we get vaccinated not to over-interpret the results. Our results show that this vaccine can prevent you from being sick. It can prevent you from being severely sick. They do not show that they prevent you from potentially carrying this virus transiently and infecting others. When we start the deployment of this vaccine, we will not have sufficient concrete data to prove that this vaccine reduces transmission.
We got vaccines to help you with your health, but they only slightly reduce the transmissions. We need a new way of doing the vaccines.
The first point, which we call a primary endpoint, is that if the vaccine also allows you to prevent initial infection, that would be great. Settle for, and all of my colleagues would settle for, is the primary endpoint to prevent clinically recognizable disease. And that's what we hope happens. And if we do, that will go a long way to diffusing this very difficult crisis.
Vaccinated people who ultimately get infected, they are capable of transmitting the infection to uninfected individuals.
So for example, if the close contact of a child is a household contact, perhaps there will be a certain number of cases of individuals who are just living with and in close contact with someone with AIDS or at risk of AIDS who does not necessarily have to have intimate sexual contact or share a needle, but just the ordinary close contact that one sees in normal interpersonal relationships.
The mRNA jabs do not prevent infection or transmission and do not create herd immunity. Therefore, they are not vaccines. Let's get that very clear. In a court of law, there's overwhelming evidence to establish the case beyond any reasonable doubt that these are not vaccines.
Should she get a flu shot? Well, no, if she got the flu for 14 days, she's as protected as anybody can be, because the best vaccination is to get infected yourself.
When somebody is naturally immune, like they got COVID, you should take a look at this video, A Pandemic of the Unvaccinated, published by the Canadian COVID Care Alliance, which spells out the fraud in great detail. They manipulated the data. They mixed cohorts to make the vaccines look more effective.
Plus, we did Operation Warp Speed, which even the radical left, Biden tried to take credit for it. Remember, he said, well, we did the vaccine. No. Even his own people said, you got the vaccine during Trump.
Let's take a look at the timeline a little bit here to look at the events that led up to the kickoff of the COVID-19 scandemic. The Global Preparedness Monitoring Board, a division of the WHO, in September 2019, published this report in which, as one of its progress indicators by September 2020, it said that the United Nations, including WHO, would conduct at least 2 system-wide training and simulation exercises, including one covering the deliberate release of a lethal respiratory pathogen. Members of the jury, take note. In October of 2019, the World Health Organization again had a vaccine safety net workshop in which it said, for the first time ever, 4 WHO divisions, UNICEF, CDC, Gavi, member states, technology companies, Pinterest, Facebook, YouTube, Microsoft, and Google, academia, and VSN members were all in one room to strengthen ties, paving the way for collaborations to surface trustworthy science-based high-quality vaccine safety information in the digital sphere. Members of the jury, take note, this was a planning meeting. And then the mainstream parrots did their job.
On behalf of our center and our partners, the World Economic Forum and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to our audience here in New York, as well as our larger virtual audience participating online today. The Event 201 scenario is fictional.
Countries have banned travel from the worst affected areas.
The president has made a decision to suspend all travel to the United Kingdom and Ireland.
Dis and misinformation circulating over the internet.
Across the world, misinformation about the virus is being shared online.
A significant demand for N95 masks and gloves are on the rise.
The demand for N95 masks to prevent the deadly airborne virus has surged.
We could eventually have 52 million treatment courses per year, but it will take many months to get there.
We're still many months out from having something that we can really deploy to the public.
And 65% of those polled are eager to take the vaccine, even if it's experimental.
The new poll finds that 49% of Americans say they would get a COVID-19 vaccine should an effective one be discovered.
Now here we are. We didn't simulate this. We didn't practice.
The US alerted Israel and NATO to a disease outbreak in China in November of 2019. Let's go to 2018. Melinda Gates and Bill Gates are worried about the biggest threat to humanity, weaponized disease. Really? How prescient. In another interview, Bill Gates thinks a common disease could kill 30 million people within 6 months. He conducted a simulation of 30 million people dying within 6 months. The pandemic starts in Wuhan, China. Ralph Barrick lectures at the Wuhan Institute of Virology on how to profit from a pandemic in 2018. Coincidence? This is the same Ralph Barrick who holds a patent for producing recombinant coronaviruses. Johns Hopkins holds CLADE-X, another pandemic exercise. Use this report by the World Integrated Trade Solution showing COVID-19 test kits being shipped around the world in 2018.
There is no question that there will be a surprise outbreak.
Anthony Fauci knew as early as January of 2017 that we would see an outbreak before the end of 2020.
Again, WITS delivers all kinds of COVID-19 test kits in 2017 around the world. And also the NIH lifts funding pause on gain-of-function research. 2016, the Government of Canada's website had an ad on March 2nd, 2016, referencing COVID-19.
Found other coronaviruses in bats, a whole host of them. Some of them looked very similar to SARS. So we sequenced the spike protein, the protein that attaches to cells. Then I didn't do this work, but my colleagues in China did the work. You create pseudoparticles, you insert the spike proteins from those viruses, see if they bind to human cells. And each step of this, you move closer and closer to this virus could really become pathogenic in people.
2015, a method for testing for COVID-19 patent was lodged by Richard Rothschild. 2012 Olympics opening ceremony. Do you see something familiar here? We have doctors dancing and Boris Johnson hauled in a hospital bed. 2010, the Rockefeller Foundation issues this statement. On page 19, China's government was not the only one that took extreme measures to protect its citizens from risk and exposure. During the pandemic, national leaders around the world flexed their authority and imposed airtight rules and restrictions, from the mandatory wearing of face masks to body temperature checks at the entries to communal spaces like train stations and supermarkets. Sound familiar? Fast forward to 2020. The World Bank issued this document, PAD 4185, in which it says the COVID-19 Strategic Preparedness and Response Program would end in 31 December 2025. What is herd immunity? According to the World Health Organization, it is the indirect protection from an infectious disease that happens when a population is immune either through vaccination or immunity developed through previous infection. However, the WHO supports achieving herd immunity through vaccination, not by allowing a disease to spread through any segment of the population, as this would result in unnecessary cases and deaths. Well, this is a oxymoron, so to speak, right? Why do you want herd immunity if you do not want it to spread through previous infection? And the CDC now confirms that natural immunity is stronger, superior to a COVID vaccination. The FDA solicits your blood. They want you to donate your plasma because you are COVID recovered and you have the antibodies. Because you fought the infection, your plasma now contains COVID-19 antibodies. These antibodies provided one way for your immune system to fight the virus when you were sick. So your plasma may be able to be used to help others fight off the disease. You see, they want to have it both ways. They want you to donate your blood, and at the same time, to castigate you, they criminalize you. They want you exterminated off the planet because you had COVID-19 and survived it. Essentially, the protected, the vaccinated, that is, want to protect themselves from the unprotected by getting the unprotected to get the same protection that is not protecting the protected. We have all kinds of psychological tactics being used by the WHO, by the Hertfordshire Behavior Change Unit. Just take a look at some of the headings here. Essentially, what they want is the perceived level of personal threat needs to be increased among those who are complacent, using hard-hitting emotional messaging. We have its counterpart here in the United States, Vaccinate with Confidence, where they delineate their tactics. One of them being provide regular updates on benefit, safety, and effectiveness, including updates from an independent vaccine safety monitoring group. Oh, really? Which group would that be?
But the one thing historically people need to realize, that even if there is some asymptomatic transmission, in all the history of respiratory-borne viruses of any type, asymptomatic transmission has never been the driver of outbreaks. The driver of outbreaks is always a symptomatic person. Even if there's a rare asymptomatic person that might transmit, an epidemic is not driven by asymptomatic.
From the data we have, it still seems to be rare that an asymptomatic person actually transmits onward to a secondary individual.
2021, we have a simulation, tabletop exercise for the spread of monkeypox, which they predicted accurately to have occurred on May 15th, 2022, the exact day of the first monkeypox incident.
The mortality rate in humans is less than 1%. This is only spread by close contact all the cases so far have been, let's say, generally men who have sex with men. And monkeypox has been endemic in Central Africa for probably the history of humankind.
So the Biden administration just purchased 13 million doses of monkeypox vaccines. And it looks like Biden may be getting a kickback here. Mr. Bourla says the 2 doses of the vaccine offered very limited protection, if any. Oh, really, Mr. Bourla? And there's nothing that says trust the science like asking for the data to be hidden for 75 years. That's what Pfizer wanted. The court turned it down. They wanted immediate release of pertinent data, vaccine safety data. And here we have 9 pages of all the adverse events that Pfizer reported. Eventually, there's over 1,290 adverse events listed in these 9 pages. These are the adverse events of special interest, huge data dump, and doctors and nurses now are crying foul. We have in Israel, 85 to 90% of the hospitalized are vaccinated. The wearing of masks. We have 2 sets of rules, one for the elite, one for children.
In general, WHO recommends that the wearing of a mask by a member of the public is to prevent that individual giving the disease to somebody else. We don't generally recommend the wearing of masks in public by otherwise well individuals because it has not been up to now associated with any particular benefit. It does have benefits psychologically, socially, and there are social norms around that, and we don't criticize the wearing of masks and have not done so. But there is no specific evidence to suggest that the wearing of masks by the mass population has any particular benefit. In fact, there's some evidence to suggest the opposite.
People should not be walking around with masks. Let me just state for the record that masks are not theater. Wearing a mask might make people feel a little bit better, and masks are protective, but it's not providing the perfect protection that people think that it is. There has not been any indication that putting a mask on and wearing a mask for a considerable period of time has any deleterious effects. There are unintended consequences. People keep fiddling with the mask and they keep touching their face.
Then can you get some schmutz sort of staying inside there?
Of course.
You do not need to wear a mask indoors if, in fact, you've been vaccinated. Good that you're vaccinated, but in a situation where you have people indoors, particularly crowded, you should wear a mask.
So even if you are vaccinated, you should wear a mask. If, in fact, you are vaccinated, fully vaccinated, you are protected, and you do not need to wear a mask.
Medical masks like this one cannot protect against the new coronavirus when used alone. WHO only recommends the use of masks in specific cases. If you have cough, fever, and difficulty breathing, you should wear a mask and seek medical care. If you do not have these symptoms, you do not have to wear masks.
And then you want it to fit better. So one of the ways you could do it, if you would like to, is put a cloth mask over, which actually here and here and here, where you could get leakage in, is much better contained.
Okay, this says it all. Masks do nothing. Now, we have the CDC investigating 109 cases of severe hepatitis in kids across 24 states, including 5 deaths. Mysterious liver disease and children's deaths. Is it the plastic and the masks? A recent report published on the Science Direct website stipulates that because face masks contain plastic, that has a way of filtering down into the liver. Go to 10maskfails.top. This is one of my websites that breaks down the whole mask scam. Let's talk a little bit about remdesivir and ventilators. 2019, there was an Ebola study conducted. It's published in the New England Journal of Medicine. in which remdesivir was administered, and we have 53.1% people dying from remdesivir. 93 out of 175 people died from remdesivir. And yet in 2020, Dr. Anthony Fauci says that remdesivir will set a new standard of care for coronavirus treatment. Well, first of all, if this is a therapeutic, then emergency use authorization vaccines are no longer called for. There is no longer a state of emergency if there is a therapeutic. Let's make that very clear, members of the jury. Remdesivir has been known to produce acute renal failure, which leads to pulmonary complications. We have edema in patients with chronic kidney disease at the end stage of renal disease. So remdesivir essentially creates the renal failure, which then produces the pulmonary edema, which warrants a ventilator, which produces a death. Study shows that 9 out of 10 COVID-19 patients on ventilators don't make it, and neither do remdesivir patients.
Hospitals are kill factories now. They kill people. And the doctors who work there, who refuse to pay attention to other types of treatment, in my opinion, and I'm entitled to that, I'm still entitled to my opinion, they're murderers, and they should be tried for murder.
Now, the FDA has approved remdesivir for young children. Members of the jury, take note. This is a crime against humanity. Justice is long overdue and coming. We have lawyers and medical experts that are starting legal proceedings against the WHO and world leaders for crimes against humanity. Multiple attorneys general considering criminal charges against Bill Gates and Anthony Fauci for illegal gain of function research. The Nuremberg Code, by the way, is the penultimate gold standard for personal autonomy and bodily integrity. It supersedes, it preempts national laws. It is the universally accepted standard for medical ethics, and anybody, any group of people can, if they wish, convene a court to adjudicate crimes against humanity. There's also 21 U.S. Code 360BBB3, the authorization for medical product for use in emergencies. Appropriate conditions designed to ensure that individuals to whom the product is administered are informed. One, that the secretary has authorized the emergency use of the product. Two, of the significant known and potential benefits and risks of such use, and of the extent to which such benefits and risks are unknown. And three, of the option to accept or refuse administration of the product, of the consequences, if any, of refusing administration of the product, and of the alternatives to the product that are available, and of their benefits and risks. Informed consent is the benchmark. Before you consent, you have to get informed first. Has the virus been isolated? What is the survival rate for COVID-19? How does the survival rate compare to influenza? Am I part of a clinical trial? Does the COVID jab modify my DNA? When do the human clinical trials end? How do the adverse events of COVID jabs compare to other vaccines? Why has the definition of a case changed? Are the COVID-19 jabs experimental? Were there any animal studies, and what were the results? Are there proven safe and effective therapeutics? Are the PCR tests reliable? And how can I boost my natural immunity through supplementation, exercise, and adequate rest? Matters upon which the CDC is mute. It has never, ever in its history advised people on how to increase their natural immunity, how to strengthen it naturally. That it's not its purpose, because its sole objective, its agenda is to sell vaccines and to enrich vaccine maker shareholders. Now, I've provided a notice of liability. There's others that have also constructed notices of liability. That can be served on any politician, any celebrity, any media head, anyone who promotes, peddles, and pushes these vaccines as safe and effective as a condition of employment, as a condition of entering into a school, et cetera, et cetera. And senators are seeking justice on CDC data frauds. We have 18 major airlines, FAA and DOT, to be sued over COVID vaccine mandates. Grandjury.net is the website to go to check out the proceedings. There's over 50 hours of testimony in there. It was conducted by worldwide notable lawyers and a judge.
It's about humanity. That's why we're going to get these bastards and send them to hell.
The Prime Minister, the Health Minister, the Federal Health Department, and all those in the Senate and the House of Representatives, all of you who have perpetrated this crime, I direct one question. How the hell do you expect to get away with it? We're not going to let you get away with it. We won't let you get away with it. We are coming for you. We have the stamina to hound you down, and we damn well will.
And then at that point, we didn't really understand the fatality rate. You know, we didn't understand that it's a fairly low fatality rate and that it's a disease mainly of the elderly, kind of like flu is, although a bit different than that. Our foundation is a bit more than 10 billion, but we feel there's been over a 20-to-1 return. So if you just look at the economic benefits, that's a pretty strong number compared to anything else.
In billionaires has been, unprecedented during the pandemic, and there's been several sectors where that has been mostly concentrated. And one is, in fact, the pharma sector, because COVID has been one of the most profitable products ever. So that's one point to discuss, and our report out today is called Profiting from Pain.
It's a very big club. And at the very apex, you have Satan himself, who wants to destroy free will, because free will is the sine qua non, the most important condition of a functional world where people have the ability to decide their future and to be held accountable. Without free will, there is no accountability. Without accountability, there are no consequences. So it's a free-for-all. And might makes right. This is contrary to the laws of God, contrary to the laws of the universe, where there are consequences for actions, where there are consequences for malfeasance, obfuscation, stealing, lying, etc.
But the vaccines are saving not only the country, they're saving the world. This would be another 1917, where you lost almost 100 million people with the Spanish flu. So the vaccines, that we did it in less than 9 months.
Some of the websites you should investigate are as follows. You can pause the video here and take a look at some of these. Very informative. They give you a wide range of details, information, knowledge, options. There's an awakening going on, and the rats are scurrying. The rats need a solution. This is one of my other websites, COVID Fear Exposed, and nojab.icu, and this one, cosmicfact.com. and of course, the mothership, nojabforme.info. So with this knowledge now, members of the jury, you are armed and equipped to make a decision, to render a verdict. Okay, so thank you for watching. And I hope Tommy comes back in time here to end the broadcast. It's been really an honor and a pleasure to produce this little presentation, to put it all together, collated. I've produced almost over 100 little videos. By produce, I mean, montaged, collated little videos. So you can find them on cosmicfact.com. And I think what's happening is the tide is turning, the rats are scurrying, and they know that we know that this is a scam. And so now they're going to make their next move. And I don't know what their next move is, another pandemic, another war, World War III, we don't know. Okay, but it's gonna heat up. Welcome back, Tommy.
Thank you so much. How was it? I
thought it was great. I had a little break. I had to relieve myself, and had some people visit me, and we chatted outside the van. People need to know that this is as grassroots as it gets. Okay. I'm in a van, living in my van, and I misspoke earlier. I said, I've been on top of the COVID scam since last year. It's actually since
2 years.
It first started, 2020.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I've followed it. The thing that triggered me, the first thing that triggered me was when Del Bigtree said, there is a new now directive by the CDC to mark on death certificates the cause of death as COVID-19 on the mere assumption that somebody may have contracted it. Forget the testing, no autopsies, but just keep marking on the death certificates COVID-19. Well, big red flag. And that's what triggered me. And from then on in, that was back in March of 2020. From then on in, this became almost like an obsession for me to keep digging. And the Lord has been very kind, and his the different ways he has helped me put it all together. It's just amazing, because I'm not the brightest bulb in the room.
Oh, shut up. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Yeah, wasn't there a study, I think yesterday, for all listeners, today is Wednesday, June 1st, 2022 at 1:42 p.m. Eastern time. I think there's a study that came out yesterday. Now, granted, I need to look into it and make sure it's not just my own confirmation bias, but didn't it show that the most recent study, I think, is 9 out of 10 COVID deaths in the last 18 months are from vaccinated.
Yeah, that's being evidenced in all kinds of countries, Israel especially, which is the most vaccinated, Gibraltar also. But some of the safest places are, Florida, India, where they have used ivermectin successfully and hydroxychloroquine at the early stages, not at the later stages. Hydroxychloroquine at the later stages is the kiss of death. You don't want to do that. You want to do it at the outpatient stage. So there's all kinds of ways now to remedy, the disease. In the video, I already talked about remdesivir and the disastrous effects it's been having on people. So keep on training. I'm going to keep training at the gym, and I like to save money. I'm kind of a tightwad right now, living in my van, but I got a really good deal. I want to look good at my funeral. I got this funeral director, Carlos. He says, I'll give you 60% off if you show up with a 6-pack. So I'm going to take him on that.
That's the way to go. That's the way to go.
Once in a lifetime deal. He's going to give me 12 months to pay it off. So, you can't lose.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And hey, man, I'm doing this from a makeshift studio in my bedroom. I think I can probably touch everything in my apartment in about 2 seconds. This entire time I was just behind that wall. You probably could hear me tiptoeing around, making my bed, putting away laundry. This is I mean, doing this podcast is like doing it inside of a submarine. So van, apartment, who gives a shit? Fuck these demons.
That's it. That's it. Listen, if we can do it at this level, imagine what we could do if we had a little bit of financial backing, right?
Exactly.
I mean,
exactly. Yeah.
you don't want to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't want to know.
Yeah. It's gonna, you can't keep it quiet. I mean, just this entire time you're doing this, I was listening to an audiobook, and it was about Francis Gary Powers getting shot down over the Soviet Union in his U-2 on May 1st, 1960.
Yeah.
And, Eisenhower learning about it.
Yeah.
They thought the pilot was dead. And then, so they start putting out these lies about how it was a NASA weather plane. And then they find out that they recovered the body, and then they recovered the tapes, and they're constantly shifting lies and shifting lies.
Spinning it.
Yeah. And it's all declassified now. It's been 62 years, but just listening to it, you sort of see this. It's like the line from the HBO series Chernobyl, and I hate quoting popular culture, but it's like every lie that is told incurs a debt to truth, and eventually, like a debt, the interest starts to grow, where finally it was like, hey man, you now are paying $2,000 on an original $100 credit card purchase. Like the moral of the story is like, get out in front of it and just tell the truth, because it will come out. It will come out
eventually. Yeah. In our day and age with the internet, it's going to break their back. I mean, there's no way getting around it. The truth will be revealed at some point in time. And that's why they're scurrying. They're trying to create, a technocratic state where you cannot have access to your social media unless, well, you're a good boy, whatever.
Yeah.
But, just something else, a little factoid everybody should know. Klaus Schwab of the WEF, his father was a very close associate of Hitler. He was uniformed during World War II. And his mother was born as a Rothschild. She comes from the Rothschild family. So it's a nice mix of, I don't know, nefarious agendas that they have been bred into.
And he was under the tutelage of none other than one Mr. Henry Kissinger.
Yeah.
That saint.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. So that was a great pilot here. We tested it out, and it works. I mean,
beautiful.
Yeah. Check it out later when you get a chance.
I will. But Paul, for now, let's wrap this one up. Let's schedule another one where it's actually you and I talking, because I do enjoy talking to you. And
thank you. Likewise.
I got to start now prepping for the next podcast and my stupid concussion. So hopefully sooner than later I can
get well.
It will. I think I need 2 more weeks. I had 2 weeks to flatten the curve, 2 weeks to flatten the concussion. I think I need 2 more weeks of. Now I'm just thinking aloud. It's not important at all.
Well, if you look at the data on concussions, it takes 2 weeks to a month. I mean,
okay, yeah. So I mean, it happened. What's today? Happened 2 weeks ago today.
Yeah.
And so
it's gonna taper off.
Yeah. So I mean, I can already feel it getting better. Today's June 1st. I'll probably stop on June 15th with the creatine, with the sunglasses, and kind of take baby steps back into it. I very much so miss Thursday nights, because that's my night where I drink beer and play video games with my friends, and I haven't been drinking and I haven't been playing video games because the screen hurts. So, but I think it's probably good to be strict for 2 more weeks and not have lifelong brain damage. So yeah, not that has anything to do
listen with it. I applaud you for just coming on and doing your solo rants with those headaches. I mean, look, you're a trooper, man. You're not going to say die. I'm here. I'm going to go forward no matter what. I work from the trenches. I don't care.
Even if I'm sitting there drooling with all the lights off, wearing sunglasses, going like, all right, what am I? Come on now. But that's the only way it's going to get better. If I sit around and wait for it to get better, it's not going to get better. So much like the world. And with that, Mr.
Take care,
Paul
bro.
Adams, thank you so much. God bless you as well. I'll email the episode when it's up. Should be up later tonight. And let's schedule another one, man.
All right.
All right, buddy. God bless.